infrastructure is not commoditized. What do you mean? I read 10 years ago that infrastructure was commoditized.
Clickbait.
You know, and I've
What are
actually
you talking about?
I've actually said it. I've written it, and to some degree, it's funny because I brought this up again, going back to Oracle, and kind of some of the announcements they've made. But you know, and what I'm seeing, and I hate to step on your toes here, Paul, but in the AI space as well. You know, in the era where, you know, the cloud era where it's just a matter of throwing up, you know, getting an instance and throwing your data or apps up there and away you go. You know, we're learning more and more how important hardware is, you know. So Oracle just announced that Database 19C Enterprise is certified for the ARM platform, and they're going to be running it on Ampere within Oracle Cloud, which is a huge deal. Anybody in database who's worked in database understands how big of a deal that is. That's part one. And part two, we've seen over the last few months, Dell, Lenovo, HPE, and others, Supermicro, come out with these very fine-tuned and designed for AI platforms. You know, Dell's got the XE9680, Lenovo has their platform. It just kind of reminded me that, you know, in an era where, you know, it really is a software-defined world and software-defined infrastructure, that underlying technology, if you don't have the right hardware, your app ain't running the way it's supposed to. That workload ain't. That language model that you're trying to train is going to take a whole lot longer or not get trained at all. That database isn't going to perform appropriately. And so it's kind of a reminder for folks that aren't on the technology vendor side, but on the IT side, that, you know, while you think in abstract terms of software, you still got to think about the underlying platforms and what you're deploying the software on, because it does have meaningful impact. Boom, that's my editorial.
No, that's good. I mean, Matt, you know, all of us had real jobs in prior lives, and I spent most of my time in product management, product marketing, and, you know, strategy roles. And I was always a believer that you allow yourself to be commoditized, and that's either an industry or a segment in type of an industry or a company, right? Mm-hmm. And even in semiconductors, I remember 15 years ago when it was, oh my gosh, software is eating the world. Semiconductors are a commodity, and look where we are today. I mean, you just can't be doing any of what we're doing today without some differentiation in compute, inside of networking, and to your point about AI, AWS has shown that, you know, if you think it's going to be commoditized, just watch us, right? And they ended up doing themselves, and with Graviton, they took out all the stuff they felt they didn't need, like SSE, big blocks. They specifically architected that chip for their data centers. Yep. And their racks and their fleet of racks to operate best in their data centers. So, yeah, infrastructure is not commoditized, and I think if we look over the last 40 years, there's been this back and forth between differentiation in software, differentiation in hardware, and everybody's, you know, you've seen the Spider-Man meme when they're pointing at each other, right? No, you're commoditized. No, you're commoditized.
Right.
Right. And by the way, some of the plays we see right now, if you look at the SaaS players, is to commoditize IaaS. Yeah. Right. Hey, none of this stuff below the SaaS layer even matters. Right. And, you know, and then you see NVIDIA trying to decommoditize. By the way, they're not commoditized right now, but what they're doing is they're finding ways to add so much stickiness to what they're doing. It's not just a chip. You know, they're selling an AI card. Oh, by the way, you can't even buy the AI card. It's a DGX box.
That's right.
With an H100 in it. No, by the way, hey, you should really be running my libraries and my frameworks on there. My CUDA frameworks, along with the libraries, and then with generative AI, hey, here's 3 or 4 models that we built as well. So horizontal and vertical integration. You have to love it. I don't know if NVIDIA is just brilliant, or they don't see the risk that they're running right now, basically competing with everybody, all their customers.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit of both. Just if I could just add one more thing on there, Pat, because you mentioned the silicon, and I find this absolutely fascinating. You know, it used to be you had AMD and Intel, you know, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, ARM crept in. Now to what you're saying, you talk about Pensando, Will, talk about Mellanox. Yeah. You see very specific silicon being produced for very
Silicon One with Cisco. I mean, that, you know, in the networking space, I mean, that's how some of these infrastructure providers are differentiating themselves on the hardware side, for sure.
Yeah, and it's not just about absolute performance in one area. It's about performance for specific needs. Intel and AMD, you know, vast difference in those two chips, but there are places where one works best. There are places where the other works best, and then you introduce ARM, and it's like it's fun to watch and it's fun to track. It's sometimes challenging, but you know, innovation certainly isn't dead.